Hi everyone, so we're going to continue with our coastal environments, talking about a new one here called an estuary. So estuaries, there are a couple different types, but there's these areas where the rivers and lakes and all these different things meet the ocean. So we're going to talk about those different communities there. So estuaries, these are coastal regions, like I just said, where fresh water from rivers meets the salt water from the ocean. So these are going to be two important terms here when we talk about it, but it's where those freshwater systems meet the ocean. Those are called estuaries. So they are semi-enclosed areas and represent a close interaction between land and sea. So we're going to see that all of these areas are heavily covered by land, unlike you might see in other ocean or other coastal regions here. And since the water is neither fresh or salt, because it's where that fresh water meets the salt water, we call this water brackish, which is kind of just a mixture of salt and fresh water, but it's not quite as salty as the sea, but it's also not fresh enough to be considered fresh water. So that's going to be an important term here, is brackish water. So these areas are considered to be our nurseries, the nurseries of the world, because a lot of fish and other animals are going to raise their young in these areas. So fish might lay eggs here, birds might nest here and create all those different environments for that and raise their young in these areas. They're also very highly productive, like we saw with our coral reefs. When we say highly productive, we see a lot of food being made in these areas to support many organisms, which is another reason that these different organisms are going to come here to raise their young, making it our nursery again. So they have muddy bottoms, so the sediment is carried down to the bottom and settles there, and the sediment, all those different particles of dirt and sand and all those different things, carry a lot of nutrients and food for these animals, which is where we get these highly productive environments here. So there are three types of estuary communities that we're going to talk about: salt marshes, mud flat, and mangrove swamps. So all of those have different unique characteristics that we're going to go over and talk about each one of them. We're going to start today with salt marshes, and we'll move on to mud flaps and mangrove swamps as we move along here. So first we're going to talk about our salt marshes. So just taking a look at these pictures as we're observing these, you can see that a lot of these, we have lake-looking structures here, a lot of grasses here, and shallow waters where dirt and everything is involved here. A few trees in the background, but not many. So on our salt marsh, again, marsh grasses are going to be a characteristic species. So it's really, really important to find things to differentiate between these different estuaries. So for this one, we want to remember marsh grasses. Our salt marsh is also going to have very nutrient-rich waters, and are going to be considered, these ones are especially the nurseries of this of the estuary communities. So there's many good hiding places for these baby fishes, these baby fish and other organisms that are going to come here to breed and raise their young, which is why we're going to use these as our very specific nursery per se. So for this adaptation, think about some of the different things that that we can see in our salt marshes. So we want to think very specifically to salt marsh here. So it's our nursery, so we're seeing a lot of young animals in these, whether that be fish or birds and other things that are trying to raise your young. So think of some adaptations that would be really good in this situation specifically. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. We're going to stop here for today.